Interview Marjan today, who I am very lucky to have gotten to know many, many years ago when I worked at a library in Massachusetts. Um, so Beth is going to give us a little bit of background about Marjan, and Beth, I'll let you kind of take it away.
Well, thank you. And first of all, thank you to the whole committee for you are the ones who really make this possible. So, and we are thrilled, obviously, to welcome Marjan Kamali today. Marjan, of course, is the author of our 2026 Tosa All-City Read title, The Lion Women of Tehran. Of course, she has also written Together Tea and The Stationery Shop, one of my personal favorites. Her novels have been translated into more than 30 languages, and she was a 2022 recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Creative Writing Fellowship. So, for anyone who has read her books, you will know why she is so popular and well loved. Marjan holds a bachelor's degree in English literature from the University of California, Berkeley, a Master of Business Administration from Columbia University, and a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from New York University. She has lived in Turkey, Iran, Germany, Kenya, and the US, and is currently a resident of Boston, or the Boston area. Today, she joins us for a brief reading and a conversation about the Lion Women of Tehran. So we are thrilled to welcome her.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Beth, and thank you, Marjan, for being here. Before we start, we do just want to acknowledge that it's been an incredibly difficult, like 36 hours, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So we know it's hard to be here. And from all of us, we just want to say that we hope all of your loved ones are safe. And we really appreciate you being here with us today. So we're going to try to focus on your beautiful book and hopefully just showing you how much we appreciate you and all that you've done. Um, so we'd love to hear you read. Some of our members read this many months ago. So this will be a nice way to get them back into the world of your book.
Thank you. Thank you. And tuning. I really hope technical issues are being. It's really an honor to have my book be part of the Tosa Reads program. It means a lot to me. I have your bookmark right here that I got when I was visiting Wisconsin back in August. I thought for my short reading, I would just dive in um, to the very beginning because it's a very good place to start, as Julie Andrews says. And and then I might just read a tiny, tiny bit from the end. So, Chapter 1, December 1981. I stood on a lacquered floor, a small woman in black, with a rectangular name badge on my chest. My coiffed, contented look was calculated so I'd appear not just satisfied, but quietly superior. In America, I'd learned the secret to being a successful salesperson was to act like one of the elite, as if spraying perfume on customers' blue-veined wrists were doing them a favor. A sea of haughty New Yorkers swerved to avoid my spray. Thank God for the more down-to-earth women, the cooks and bakers coming up to the first floor from the basement home goods section. They were too polite to reject the fragrant droplets I offered. Orange, lily, jasmine, and rose notes nestled in the lines of my palms and the fur of my clothes. Look at you, Ellie. Soon you'll take over this whole brand. I'd better watch my back. My friend and coworker Angela, returning from her cigarette break, sidled up and whispered in my ear. The scent of her Hubba Bubba gum couldn't hide the smoke on her breath. I shivered at the reek of tobacco. The bitter, sour notes would forever remind me of one long ago night in Iran. The night when an act of betrayal changed the entire course of my friendship with Homa and both of our lives. From the moment I'd read Homa's letter last night, I'd been a wreck. I batted away Angela's compliments, said I wasn't doing all that well, really, and that I had a headache because I hadn't eaten all day. Just might faint, I added with a touch of melodrama. It was a relief when Angela was whisked away by a needy customer. My mother always said the envy of others invites the evil eye to cast doom on us. She often told me that being perceived as too competent, happy, or successful could summon misfortune. I knew belief in the powers of other people's jealousy and the jinxing of an evil eye needed to be cast off. But at the age of 30, in the middle of that massive Manhattan department store, I was still unwittingly beholden to superstition. The truth of who I was could not be escaped, nor could the flaw I had spent years trying to quash. The guilty one had always been me. All right, so that's the very beginning of the book. And then just in light of everything that's been going on, and I know it's a spoiler, but not really, because I'm assuming a lot of you have read the book. I'm just gonna read just the very end of the book because it's something that I try to think about a lot. Let them beat me with their batons, let them bruise my body to a pulp, let them shoot and kill me. For a lifetime we have fought. We have fought and fought and fought. We want to be free. We want to be equal. We want to be able to live our lives. I recently read a theory about ocean waves. This theory says that while to our eyes waves appear suddenly on the shore, their abruptness is illusion. Waves begin thousands of sea. They accumulate shape and power from winds and undersea currents for ages. When you see the people screaming in Iran, please remember that the force and fury of our screams have been gathering power for years. In all video calls we've had, in our online texting and connection, I look at you, my daughter, and I wish for you not the world, nor the owning of it, nor even success in it. I wish for you the ability to be free. And I hope that you experience some moments so tender and dear that they make up for 1,000 harsh ones. Remember above all to always love, love madly. Your grandmother, Homa. And that's the very end of the book. So, um, thank you for letting me share that. And hopefully, you guys were able to hear me and everything went okay with the reading.
I could hear you. I could hear you, so that's
That's
good.
good.
Um, so obviously the book, covers a lot of ground, starting when they're children and then moving into, throughout their whole lives. Um, we've got some clapping going. That's nice. And yes, like thank you so much for reading from us. I think it's always really special to hear an author read their own work. So we're going to kind of start with like the big question, which is that, this book revolves around a childhood friendship. You mentioned kind of in your acknowledgments that you started with a very different book and this one character stuck out to you, but like what made friendship the vehicle you wanted to write about? And how did your friendships then influence the book?
Yes, the book started quite differently, Megan. Actually, it was set in the town of Lexington, Massachusetts, where you used to work in our
Hmm.
library, and you were our librarian. And I had this idea for these four mothers who were neurotic and obsessed about where their children would get into college, which, if anybody knows our town, I was not
Yeah,
using my
that
imagination.
sounds very familiar.
Yes, yes, it's a very, very common story over here. Um, when the pandemic happened and we're all cooped up, I was online and on Instagram, I found an old childhood friend of my own, somebody who I'd been friends with when I lived in Iran when I was in the fourth grade. We did everything together. And just seeing her face, she looks kind of exactly the same. It's very strange. And all these decades had passed, and we obviously we have very different lives now. But I kept thinking, oh, these child friendships when we're young shape us and their
Mhm.
influence on us as people. The influence lasts even if the friendship ends. And so I knew I really wanted to write the story of a broken ship because I remembering that friend. And I had read My Brilliant Friend by Eleanor Ferré, and I was really by that book when I first read it. And I remember, gosh, I would love to write a friendship story as well about two. And this book came out, and in some reviews, it was compared to that. I was just tickled. That meant a lot to me.
I did think about that book quite often when I was reading yours. So,
Good, good.
um, so with the two characters in the friendship, did you identify more with Ellie or Homa, and why? Did...
Yeah, I get asked that a lot, and I think when the book first came out, I would say Ellie,
Mhm.
because Ellie, as we know, has many more flaws. She is very um, just insecure. She's riddled with doubt. She has a trait of jealousy that's very problematic. But I realize now that I'm actually both. I have a lot of Homa in me and I have Ellie in me. And I think a lot of women are both a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. And I'm sorry if my voice is breaking up. I just saw that in the chat. I hope you're hearing well enough.
I can hear almost everything, so hopefully it's yeah, getting better.
Okay. Okay.
Um, have there been times in your life where, especially since writing the book, where you felt like you wished you were more of one of the characters or
Um, you know, I think I think I've come to peace with the fact that depending on the day, depending on the hour, I am either Ellie or Homa, and sometimes I'm both. I
yeah.
think they both have strengths and
Mhm.
weaknesses, to be honest with you. Even though on the face of it, Homa says Homa seems to be the mainline woman.
Mhm. Yeah, I think yeah, they both have strengths and they both grow so much, I think, and change. And that's really wonderful to watch as you watch them throughout their lives. Um, as it does follow them, like how did you decide where to start the book? Because obviously it starts when Ellie's an adult and the friendship is already broken. How did you decide to start there?
Well, with all three of my novels so far, I have a similar structure, which is I start somewhere in the future, and then we go back in time to see how we got to this point, and then I take the story further.
Hmm.
So, the piece I just read for you, we start when Ellie is 38 years old. She's at Bloomingdale's and she's working, at the cosmetics counter. And she is very flustered because she's just gotten this letter from her childhood friend. And, so many know from reading that that's the inciting incident. And it's very much a cliche to have the character get a letter. But I decided I'll just go with it. So Ellie gets the letter from her childhood friend, having not spoken to her decades, having lost touch. I kept thinking to, what would it do to me actually if I got a letter from an old childhood friend that's it's urgent? I go back in time and then I made up, their childhood. But it was very important to me to have you see Ellie and Homa when they're 7, two
Hmm.
friendship form.
Yeah. At any point, did you change the beginning? Did you start at a different place, or did you always know it would start there?
I had yes, so we can nitty gritty reads epilogue where we are in Miss Ellie's cafe used to be the prologue.
Oh, okay.
So the
Okay.
story originally in my first drafts opened up with the cafe and opened up Miss Ellie as an older woman and that scene in Lexington, actually, Lexington, Massachusetts. But I decided to change it as I went along. And I think that had originally been the opener because I had been working with those four
Mhm.
very obsessed moms, and they used to go to a cafe called Miss Ellie's Cafe. So, yes, it changes a lot as you do
Yeah.
it.
I do have a question that's purely selfish, like nobody else will understand this, but when I read that, the epilogue and the scene in Miss Ellie's, and they talk about how it blew up after being good reviews on a townwide email. I was like, oh, is the Lexington list still going? Is it still alive?
It most
Um,
certainly is. It most certainly is. That
does
is
JJ still give
exactly
his
what
weather
I
updates?
absolutely with
I
the
relied on those so heavily.
oh, we all still do. And for the rest of you, we have this listserv, this email listserv in our town. And we have a gentleman named JJ who gives constant weather updates, and they're very thorough. And yes, that's still going. And you know
That's
what? Again,
wonderful.
I just think it's fantastic that you picked up on that. You're the first person who got that. Yes, that's
What? I loved the
but my
Lexington.
Lexington people haven't said anything. You know, our listserv is almost sacred.
It
Uh,
is. It's a big deal. I had to like get a special permission to join as a town employee because I didn't live in Lexington. It was a whole thing. Um,
yes,
so it's very
it's a
special. I was
very,
very happy
very,
to see it mentioned.
you made it in. That's amazing.
I did. I got in.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's great. So sorry, everybody. That was my selfish question that I was going to try to get answered today. Um, so we can get back to the actual writing process, I guess, now that my personal question has been answered. So one thing, because you are writing about places you've lived and things that are sort of part of your life, what kind of research do you do then? Like how much is it, it must be pretty unique to write about things that are kind of in like your personal history and in your recent past. So what sources do you use other than your own memory?
Well, I have a lot of books that I use as my sources. And you know, the memory part is only emotional memory. So if I'm writing about a friendship, like in the Lion Women of Tehran, I am using my emotional memory of how did I feel when I first made a friend in school, or how did I feel for my first play date, so to speak.
Mhm.
But all the rest I have to make up. I wasn't there in 1940 Iran, and so a lot of it is historical fiction. I use a lot of historical books. And I also use now, we can go online and do a lot of research, but what helped me the most with both the Lion Women of Tehran and with the stationery shop was that I interviewed people in my own family who were older and who had lived through it, through
That
those
must have been
times.
really unique to interview your
Hmm.
family.
Yeah, it was a good excuse. The stationery shop before the Lion of Tehran, I my dad at great length. So grateful that at that time together. And for the Lion Women of Tehran, I spoke to my mom as much as I could.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's really special to get that kind of perspective on their life and their memories. Um, so kind of a little bit more about like process stuff. Like, so how do you sit down and write your books? Do you just kind of like sit down every day, get your couple hours in? Where do you write? Do you write in certain places?
Yeah.
How do you choose those places?
Well, I used to write where you used to work.
Yeah.
I used to write in your library, Megan. I used to go
Yeah.
in there and I had a cubicle where I like to sit away from anything that would distract me. So I sat in the Japanese anime section. Um, but these days now I write at home. and I write in the office from which I am coming to you. So you
Okay.
can see my office, but you can't see my desk, but this is my desk. As far as my process, if I'm in the drafting stage of a book, I do try to write every day. It doesn't always happen. But I find if that's my goal, then I get, much more work done. And I have a very old school process. I hope you forgive me, but I literally go to CVS and I buy a notebook. And then this is the notebook for the Lion Women of Tehran,
Ooh,
complete with
wow.
pictures. And I do a lot of handwriting. So I do handwritten scenes plus a lot of my research notes. Um, I don't do some authors do, which some of my friends they do like 10 months research, then they sit down and write. I do the research in tandem. So I research a
Mhm.
bit, I write a bit, research, write, sort of at the same time. Yeah.
Has that changed from book to book, or has that kind of pattern stayed the same as you go?
That's a fashion. It's only as a book I'm writing out yet. For the first Together tea, the state and the line with of Tehran, my system was very much the same. Novel which really exists. I'm trying, I actually have, and trying to do books require strategies, processes, different vibes, really. It's like a whole new world.
Did you have a favorite scene to write in this book?
Oh, what a good question that is. Usually I get asked what the most difficult scene was, and I can most certainly tell you that.
That's the
Um,
next question. So if you want to
oh,
answer
okay.
that one first, you
Okay, I'll
can.
tell you that. Um, a lot of my favorite scenes were the ones where Homa and Ellie were just in each other's company and having
Mhm.
fun, either cooking when they were children, later when they reunite in New York City and they go to the New York Public Library and then they go to the JP Morgan Library. Um, I find that those scenes, it was just and Homa being friends were the most fun. Or the bazaar scene where they're playing hooky. Okay. Yes, I see the chat and I apologize, everybody. I am so sorry. I don't know what's going on, but if you want to turn off my camera and do audio only, I get it. So I will be at your discretion for that, Carrie. Thank you. And I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. Um,
That's okay.
okay. Yes.
Um, um, yeah, I really enjoyed reading the bizarre scene. So um, I hope that makes you happy as a writer, that the ones that you liked writing were the ones we liked reading.
Yes.
Um, so what was the hardest scene to write?
The hardest scene was without question the scene of the cinema fire. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because initially I had it as like two paragraphs. And then that was one of the scenes where once this manuscript was submitted, my editor said, you may want to stretch this out. You really
Mhm.
want to draw this out. And that was hard to do because it's so traumatic. And I
Mhm.
didn't want, I try not to do graphic violence or to be honest with
Mhm.
you, graphic sex. It's just not my thing. But with this, I realized I could still write the scene if I did it at a distance. And that's why the way I wrote it, it's Homa um, imagining what it was like.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, I've cried a lot reading all of your books, but but I do feel like you take good care of the reader. Like I don't feel like you hurt readers. Like you just really pull out of a lot of emotion, but you don't traumatize us. So good job.
Thank you. I just want it to be cathartic, but not cathartic. Yes.
Yeah. Um, Was there a season, or I'm not a season, was there a scene that you had to edit out that you wish readers could read?
That's a great question. In this novel, no, because in this novel, it's so interesting. Each book is different. With my other two books, my notes, the editors were always, can you cut? Can you cut? Can you cut?
Mm,
With this one, the first draft, it's more like, can you add? Can you add? Can you add? So it wasn't like that. No, not with this one.
okay. Um, and then finally, just do you ever write, when you are writing, do you have a particular reader in mind? Or, and then like who would that be? Who are you thinking of when you're writing?
Oh, that's a really good question too. Um, I think it's good to not think of your reader, any reader really, in your first draft. I don't, in any case. For me, in the first draft, I just let it be. I just sort of pretend no one's going to read it, but of course I know they are. But in the revision, I get very meticulous about thinking about the reader.
Okay.
And I suppose maybe think of my daughter reading it. Yeah. But also
Okay.
now I have more official readers, so I also think of all of you because I've met so many people now who are my readers who've read all three. So I sort of have a sense of who my reader is.
Okay. That's neat.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a few more questions like about kind of the meat of the book too. Moving on from kind of your process.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously within the book, family structure and class play a big role in like influencing their friendship and how things play out for them for both characters. So what are some ways that you signaled class in the book that might not be apparent to American readers, but would be really obvious to Iranian or Iranian American readers?
Yes, in Iran, the class system is pretty entrenched, or at least especially in a century. It's not a caste system the way for example, but it's most certainly were very distinct classes. And some of the ways I signaled those, for example, Ellie is in Homa's home, whether when they're children or later on when they're university students, um, people sit on the floor to eat. And in Iran, traditionally, for millennia, people sat on the floor to eat. But in the 20th century, as people became much more westernized and, you know, um, the middle and upper middle class sort of became more prosperous, they started to eat in the more Western style. So we know, obviously, with tables and chairs. So that's one small way. Um, and then another big signifier of class in Iran used to be, and fortunately it's not anymore, your level of education. It used to be that if you had an education, you were upper class, and if you didn't, you were lower class. And, we see some of those tensions where Homa has to really fight for her education. And later,
Mhm.
when she becomes a teacher, she deliberately teaches in a very impoverished neighborhood to bring those girls up. Now that's much less the case. Now, education is more widespread, but those are two.
Yeah, and that fits the time period of the book so well then. So you did move back to Tehran in 1980, correct? So shortly after the revolution. Were
Yes,
you subject to the dress codes and restrictions that we see, Homa and her daughter experience?
I sure was. And I was there as the life changed. So
Okay.
moved back. I was 9 years old when we moved back in the summer of 1980. And when
Okay.
we moved back summer, women dressed how they chose. Some and chose to cover themselves, chose to wear a job. Women in Tehran did not. They would wear whatever they wanted. I was summer, walked around in, some mini skirt, have you. I was there as the dress code progressively changed. First, they said women had to cover themselves in government offices. They said, well, actually, also in schools. Then they said, actually, also in shops, actually, everywhere, every single place, then inside your own. So I was there for, and I remember when I first arrived and I started fourth grade, we didn't cover any, our hair was not covered. We just wore what we wanted, though we did have a uniform. The fall year had to be covered. Had to,
So, I mean, I was going to say, like, how did that feel after having lived outside? But even like experiencing that as a child, how did that feel? Was that confusing? Was it, how was that as a child, especially?
well, as a child, it was confusing because it didn't matter if I had lived abroad and come back. Even
Hmm.
for girls my age, they had grown up not doing it and then they had to do it. It felt incredibly unfair. 'Cause I remember we kept thinking, but why are they forcing us? Why are they forcing us? And if it's believe or we believe, I but utmost respect for you, like go ahead and do it. In our case, we believe in it and we didn't want to do it, but we were forced, and that was the case for most of people that we knew. So yes, it felt confusing. It felt unjust because my friends who were boys didn't have to do it. My cousins who were boys didn't have to do it. And it quite frankly felt absurd. It felt absurd. It just felt so, uh, it didn't make sense for us.
Hmm. Well, thank you for sharing those memories with us. Um, so in the book, Ellie's mom is obsessed with the evil eye. Is that superstition common in Iranian culture at that time, or was her mom just particularly insecure and superstitious?
It was very common. Both are
Okay.
true. And her mom was particularly insecure and superstitious. But it was very common, and to some
Okay.
extent still is in the Iranian culture, to have this idea of an evil eye, of other people's having the power
Mhm.
to. Reading this book, I have heard so many readers about their own culture's versions of evil eye.
Mhm.
And in the Italian culture, Indian culture, it's certainly prevalent in the culture. It's just everywhere. Greek and Turkish, we don't have the big eyes that you buy when you visit. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's very widespread.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I'm sure we've all heard things from, especially maybe older family members. We've all heard some sort of superstition. And one of my very good friends, her grandmother is from Poland and like absolutely will not allow an orange cat in the house. Like, so they're all over.
I love that. I love that. Yeah,
Yes. So she was very upset when I got an orange cat, and I was like, I promise I'll be okay. Um,
that's funny.
yeah. So with that, do you have writing superstitions? Like, do you have to use a certain color pen or something like that?
I have so many. I have so many. If I tell you some of them, you might think,
No, I
oh,
believe them. I believe them. I mean, they're working. They're working. Your books are doing great. So whatever you're doing, you got
thank
to keep
you.
doing it, right?
Yeah, well, for saying that. Thank you for saying that. And sometimes my superstition change book to book, but for the stationery shop, which Beth so kindly mentioned, intro, that book, there was a lot of chewing of bubble gum that I did.
Oh.
Now, there have been studies that show when you're chewing gum, it helps your brain focus, especially if you are slightly to attention deficit because something about the movement, chewing of them, um, helps with the focus. And so I did that so much writing that book. And then I got a cavity. And then I thought, I need to stop this. So I sort of weaned myself off that habit. But I have other superstitions. Another superstition of mine is as I'm writing a book, I keep a writing log on Excel spreadsheet that is so meticulous, so ridiculous and unnecessary, but necessary to me, where I document all my minutes, everything I do. It's my own way. I cannot write without that. So, and then I have all these things on my desk, which I'm looking at now, quite frankly. We all have our lucky stone and uh man, the pens, the ink. I have all that stuff.
Um, and then I did want to ask about food because I feel like food plays an important role in all of your books, and those passages are so vivid. They're some of my favorite to read because they really draw you into the character's world. I feel like you learn a lot about the characters. What is your favorite food that you featured in Lion Women?
Oh, yeah. One of my absolute favorites is Homa's favorite, which is called June, and it's the walnut and pomegranate molasses and chicken dish. And that's actually the dish that um, Ellie gets jealous when she sees Homa and her beloved in the kitchen together over the stove making it. But that's absolutely one of my favorites, and I try to make it, but it's never ever as good as my mom's. But people ask me for the recipe so many times that it is on my website, on the homepage, along with three other recipes. But the June is my mom's recipe.
That's really sweet. The book club here at the Wauwatosa Public Library, for the meeting when they discussed your book, they did make the recipes from your website. They were a big hit. There was nothing left, so staff didn't get anything at the end. We were disappointed. But everybody was very happy with the recipes, so good job.
I love to hear that. I love
Yeah,
to hear that. That's so cool that you guys made them.
I snuck in beforehand and like took one spoonful of the um of like the chicken Olivier. I got one
Yes.
like little spoonful of that on a cracker before they went in, and then I didn't get anything else, and I was really bummed. So
Oh,
I know
I'm
I'll have to
sorry
cook.
you
I'll
missed
actually have to do the
out.
work myself, but
Yes. Yes.
is there any food from Iran in general that you think everybody just has to try at least once?
I would say everybody has to try the crispy golden bottom of the rice, bottom of the pot rice. It's called tahdig, and some
Hmm.
of you may have had it um, at Persian restaurants or on your own. But when you make the rice in a pot on the stove and you let the bottom kind of burn, but not really burn, just golden and crispy, that's the best.
Yeah, that is really good. Um, So we only have a few more questions, and then we're going to ask if people have questions, they can put them in the chat, and then Julie and Carrie will get those to me so that we can ask some questions. Um, so these are our last two, kind of official questions. Your books always have really beautiful covers. What
Mhm.
kind of influence do you have in that design process?
Um, I have a little bit more now than I used to. For my first book, I had less, but for the stationery shop and the Lion Women of Tehran, I had some input. So you may know that the hardcover of the Lion Women is very different than the
Hmm.
paperback cover. Um, I'm so lucky because we have an art director at my print who actually writes, which is not the case, art director. And so she really gets a sense of the vibe, and she did the hardcover of the stage and paperback of both Stationery Shop and Line Women, and I just feel they're gorgeous. There's no way on earth I would have come up with those designs, but they also rhyme with each other, which they did on purpose.
I was going to ask because I felt like Stationery Shop and then the hardcover of Lion Women do complement each other so well. Um,
Yes, that was all intentional.
that's really neat. Do you do you get to go back and forth with them and like see different versions, or do they kind of come to you with a finished product?
For the Stationery Shop, they came to me with a very early version, and like a good little girl, I said, "That's fantastic." And then my agent said, "No, this is horrible. Go back to the drawing board."
Oh,
Literally,
wow.
go back to the drawing board. So they changed it, and it was so much better. So sometimes you do need an advocate, especially because writers, Megan, we're not always, mm, you know good at advocating for ourselves. So it helps to have people, right? We're kind of
Yeah,
not built. But with Lion Women, they came to me with a pretty much finished version, and I had very little to say. For the hardcover, I think, the creature at the top of the hardcover, those of you who've seen it, um, some people think it looks a bit like a dragon, but it's actually a Homa bird. It's the ancient mythological bird. And my input was we gave her a little pedicure because she had these lens that made her look a little mean. And we just clipped them a bit. And the
nice.
paperback, yeah, I just love the paperback of the Lion Women. We just sort of talked a lot about the font. We had a lot of font discussions. But yeah.
Well, that's great. Then my final like official question is just
Mm.
what has been the best part of releasing and promoting this book?
Honestly, the best part has been hearing how much people connect to the story. I knew when I was writing the book, I wasn't really just writing about Iran. And so when I meet readers and they come to me at events or write to me and tell me, guess what? I had a friend. I know what this feels like. Or, for example, Ellie's mother was my mother. I feel so connected to the people who reach out to me, and that just makes me feel good because I want my stories to connect with people. So the best part really has been the connection.
That's wonderful to hear. Um, so we do have a question here. Somebody wants to know how your book has been received in other countries, especially in Iran.
Yes, so this book has been translated into many languages. I think Lion Women is about 15 languages now.
Amazing.
And in some countries I know how it's done. For example, France, it's quite popular. Italy and Spain, very popular. And Croatia, actually.
Hmm. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And also Romania. In Iran, I can't tell you how it's done because we can't publish it there for a variety of reasons. First of all, the sanctions, we can't do a contract, but a lot of books get published there without contracts, like the Stationery Shop did. But this book, I don't think under this current regime would get published because, I mean, they'd have
Fair
to
enough.
censor so much of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, have you gotten to like talk to readers from other countries?
Yes, because of Instagram, I mean, not really like physically talk to them, but I get to communicate with readers from a country. Sometimes they, posts and tag me, and we sort of communicate in that way. I have also zoomed into a couple of book clubs in India and, um, you know, a few places. I was supposed to go to Rome Yeah, but unfortunately I couldn't because my mom had surgery. But it's always cool to get to just think about it. It's also very surreal.
I bet. That's pretty neat. Okay, and then we have one more question, which is, are you able to tell us anything about when your next book might be coming, or is that still, can you give us a little teaser for what's coming next?
Yeah, I'll give you guys a teaser. You know, the hardcover of Lion Women was launched in summer of 2024. And right now I'm hard at work on the fourth book. I have my notebook. It's literally open in front of me because I'll be going back to it um, after we finish our lovely event. I would say sometime in 2027 if
Ooh,
everything goes well.
that's exciting. That's soon. That's great.
That is soon. That is soon. I need to get my act together. So we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Are you good about deadlines? I feel like from working with you at the library, you were great, but like, would your editor say differently?
Uh, I'm generally good about deadlines, but so much has been going on, like both personally, globally, and I traveled so much for this book, which is why I actually made Wisconsin um last summer. So, um, but yes, generally I'm good with deadlines and hopefully
Well,
it will
good.
be
Then
fine.
hopefully 2027 we'll get to read another book of yours.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And we've all really enjoyed reading your book and talking about your book in book clubs and having all these events. So it's been a really fun Tosa City read for us. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you for your fantastic questions, Megan. It's so good to see you again.
no, it's so good to see you too.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you
thank you
so
to
much.
everyone at Tosa Reads. And thank you for your patience with our technical issues. I
Yeah,
really
thank you,
appreciate
everyone.
it.
All right. Well, thank you, Marjan.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a good
you.
rest of your Sunday, everybody. Here's to
You
better
too,
days.
and good luck with your writing today.
Thank you. Well, now that I'm back on camera, this was the Lion Women notebook, and this is the
The new
novel
notebook.
4. It's currently called
How
Notebook.
exciting.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Beth, for your introduction. Thank you for your sponsorship. We really appreciate it. We did record the meeting, so we'll find a way to make that available to everyone as well. So thank you all very much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.